Hi everyone. I figured I would make a vlog just to give you some updates as of August of 2024. It's been about a year, a little over a year since I moved here to LA to pursue my long-term passion of stand-up comedy. There's been good nights, definitely. Recently there was this thing called the Burbank Comedy Festival at this comedy club called Flappers in Burbank, and I do very well in those rooms, mixed with real people, mixed in with real comics. Everybody's super supportive. And then some nights I don't do very well. um, I mean, in my defense, I've been doing very well in front of anytime there is a big real crowd. I do very well. Sometimes I don't do very well at the Hollywood Improv open mic, which is known to be very, very difficult. But I can't help but feel that I should have done better. I'm a little hard on myself. But anyway, that's not really what I want to talk about. I mean, I feel like I was wrong about something before I moved here to LA. I told myself, hey, if I make comedy the main thing in my life and try to find other pieces around it to support myself, maybe that'll be the right way to go because all my life I've been kind of running away from my day job side. I thought as long as I'm like full time in a day job, it would hold me back from the comedy side. I need to go all in on the comedy. And I mean, I'm definitely realizing that that's not true because, first of all, money doesn't come almost ever from comedy. There's been some opportunities here and there, but it's never going to be consistent enough. I feel like. I've only been here a year and I'm only starting to get booked more and more, but the money piece, you just can't figure it out without a job. I feel like I should have known that before I quit my jobs. I have a tendency to quit jobs instead of waiting long enough to go to a better job. So I have all these regrets about my resume. It's too late for that. It's always been a little bit hard for me to juggle this comedy passion of mine and whatever I need to do to make money. There was this one company that I actually liked working there, and then I started kind of getting too attached to it. Like I started wondering, oh, when I'm gonna get promoted or I want to do more instead of just doing comedy. I feel like as long as you have a decent, stable job that doesn't like abuse you, that you don't hate, you should just stick with it. And I could have always done other things on the side. Now I need to start all over again. So I think I'm in a kind of a tight spot. I think it's mostly my fault. It's always I need to take responsibility for that. Um, when I was a kid, like 22, coming out of undergrad, I was always dissatisfied about like not getting into Google, which is like the best company that you could ever get into. And even then, I made a big deal about how like, oh, why didn't life turn out exactly the way I wanted to? Why didn't I get that Google job right out of college? And then later in my tech career, I'm always complaining like, oh, why couldn't I have gotten that perfect software engineer job? Or why couldn't things have worked out perfectly at that startup? And as I get older, I'm finally in my mid 30s and I'm realizing there's no such thing as perfect. Some people are still working as baristas, or some people are still working as bartenders in their 30s, and they're still working hard for whatever they're pursuing. And then I was sitting there at my office job just complaining about every little thing. I guess I've always been kind of an ungrateful person. Apparently, there's something to say about that. Like in the brain, there's this thing called the amygdala, right? And people who are prone to depression, aka myself and my family in general, there's this thing where you have an overactive amygdala. So if that happens, then you start doing rumination about yourself, like negative self-referential rumination. And also just, I think negative things in general, like negative aspects of what's happening in your life. And then that pumps out cortisol, and then that cortisol worsens the amygdala. So it's like a whole endless loop of stress, which I've always been exposed to ever since I was a kid. I've always been very unhappy about everything that's happened in my life, which is weird because a lot of good things have happened in my life too. And I've just taken those things for granted. A cliche thing to say, but it's weird how my brain works. I used to think I was such a smart person, and if I kind of review all the weird decisions I've made over the years, I am not a smart person at all. It's like in the moments that count the most, I make the biggest mistakes. Like I make some kind of an impulsive decision to quit the job. I make some impatient decision before I figure out what to do. And I'm smart when it comes to like most easy things, like doing Excel or coding Python. And then when it comes to like making big decisions in my life, I feel like I've always been impulsive, immature. So that's what I've been kind of wrestling with over these past few weeks. The comedy side was been going well. It was like a dream over the past year, 2023, 2024. I've grown like beyond what I could imagine. So I'm really happy about that part. That's the one thing that's very good in my life. um, and that was like my life's mission to give my all in comedy. So looking at that part of my life, I feel like I'm very satisfied, even though sometimes I bomb here and there at Hollywood Improv. But I could even die tomorrow and be happy about that part. And that was the resolve that I had when I moved to LA. Like I don't care if I die or become homeless. I'm gonna give this one last try to stand up. And it sounds good. And it was that bravado and courage that I brought with me from Denver to here to LA. And I poured all my soul into this comedy stuff. But realistically speaking, you cannot continue living here in LA without money, without a stable job. You cannot continue to do comedy anywhere, even outside of LA, without a stable job to support yourself. Apparently the secret was to have a spouse or be a Nepo baby and have a family that can support your comedy dreams. Or just live at home. Those are the only stable situations that I've seen here, even here in LA. Other comedians, it's actually very rare that somebody juggles a stable, great job and parallels it with a comedy career at the same time. Usually when you see somebody thriving in comedy, unless this is like a very rare special person, they're not doing it in conjunction with a stressful day job. It's usually one or the other. For me, I could have had both, and I just threw the job part away, which was a premature decision. In my defense, like I felt like I couldn't give my all to comedy without saying goodbye to my tech job. So that's my only defense, but I feel like that's a really terrible excuse. You have to have a job to support yourself. So I guess that was a lot of rambling for today. I guess one last thought to end today is, I guess, a couple of thoughts. One is that I've been seeing a lot of content creators get into trouble lately. There was this one content creator who like apparently convinced this lady to jump into a river and she didn't know how to swim. So that was on the news. I think that was a couple of months ago, which is really problematic. I've been thinking about that a lot, like how we think that making a living doing what you love is like the ultimate goal for some of us. And I think that's cool and all, and that's what I was pursuing with comedy too. But if these weird content creators without any value system, like they are convincing people to go kill themselves in jumping into a river, like that is not social media that we want or need. But these content creators, they're going famous for all kinds of reasons. They might be juicy and spicy, they might be controversial or whatever. So that's the way they get people to watch them. It's not always something that's thinking about the end viewer and the audience's mental well-being. And I guess that's really hard for any content creation or content network to be able to say, hey, this content is going to be useful for the end user or harmful for the end audience. But yeah, I think a lot of content creators nowadays, they just want to get famous, they just want to get big. And in order to make that money, they're willing to do whatever they have in their arsenal, which is not always good. They're not ethical people, they're not compassionate people. So I don't know, maybe AI can improve and help solve that problem. Number two thought I had about comedy is that I think, I love comedy. I've been experimenting a lot over this past year, prop comedy, regular comedy, Asian comedy, alt dark comedy. I love them all. Sometimes people don't get me when I do. Oh, musical comedy. I'm actually the most proud of my musical comedy, but I can't find a good occasion to do musical comedy all the time. But I think, oh, I had a friend. I know this ventriloquist comic that I used to see around the open mics. That kind of blew up, went viral apparently. I was very proud of him. And I used to see how other open mic comedians was not impressed by what he was doing and would not laugh even at the open mics. And then he blew up and I think he found his own audience, which I think kind of goes to show that even if your peers are not laughing, you might be doing great comedy, unique comedy that maybe bothers them or something. I think that's what, his name is Zach, by the way, Zach Binder, who blew up. So I guess that's a good reminder from me too. Maybe maybe I'm not liked by a certain comedy club. Maybe people are not laughing, but it doesn't mean that you're not doing good, unique art that you're supposed to be doing. So it's all a very confusing affair here in the LA comedy scene, but kind of gives me hope that even if people misunderstand you, even if people don't get what you're doing right away, if what you are doing is authentic and unique, then people will eventually find you and love you for that. So I guess to advice to myself as well, not to give up. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Please pray for me as I embark on this job searching period.